Hi guys, so the BBC is generally held in high regard because of its quality journalism and its impartiality. Now there are many things to talk about in both of those regards, but around the world it's held in high esteem. Now, Boris Johnson recently replaced the head of the BBC with a Tory party donor, a man who donated about £400,000 to the Conservative Party over the last number of years. Conservatives now have their sights set on OFCOM. Let me explain what OFCOM is. So it says here on Wikipedia, the Office of Communication, commonly known as OFCOM, is the government-approved regulatory and competition authority for the broadcasting, telecommunications and postal industries of the United Kingdom. So it's a body that regulates the media, basically, in the United Kingdom. Now it says here in this interview with Steve Baker, if you don't know Steve Baker, he used to be the leader of the ERG, the hard right anti-European European research group. Let's hear what he has to say about the new guy that they want to put in place of the old one at Ofcom.
Reports this morning that Paul Dacre, the former editor of the Daily Mail, a critic of the BBC, is Boris Johnson's top choice for the job of Ofcom chairman. Is that an appointment you'd welcome?
Of course it is, yes, I'd be delighted. And of course, I'd like to see Charles Moore go in as chairman of the BBC. I think this would be great news. And I think anyone suggesting we were somehow appointing our preferred people needs to look at the record of others who've been appointed.
Okay, so what they're talking about here is Paul Dacre. Now, Paul is an English journalist and former long-serving editor of the British right-wing tabloid The Daily Mail. He's the editor-in-chief of DMG Media, which publishes the Daily Mail, the Mail on Sunday, the free daily tabloid Metro, and the website Mail Online, and other titles. So let's get a bit of understanding about why Steve Baker is happy to have Paul do this job. So it says here, just if we go down to where it says on Wikipedia under EU membership referendum, in April 2016, Charles Moore wrote in The Spectator that the Daily Mail was covering the referendum campaign with more anger than melancholy, with bellowings of Eurosceptic rage from the great Paul Dacre. The Daily Mail backed the Leave campaign, or Brexit vote, in the edition of the 21st of June, following the emphasis over the previous month's stories on stories critical of immigration. So you have an issue, and I've talked about this before, such as immigration, that was ramped up in the months up to the referendum. People believed immigration is the most important issue. Why did they think that? Why did people vote for Brexit on the issue of immigration? Because the likes of Paul Dacre and the Daily Mail continued to pour poison in the ears of the general public. Notice now that immigration is not an issue. It moved on to fish. It moved on to sovereignty. It moved on to something else. The people were the people were tricked, the people were confused and conned by the likes of the Daily Mail. And now this guy is going to run Ofcom. He's going to decide what information is acceptable to the public and what is not. And of course, Steve Baker is happy about this.
Appointed to these roles and try to be a bit, again, more realistic about politics and policy and who should be appointed by governments.
Why would it be great news then?
Well, because they're Conservatives and they might actually start to look at the way the media.
At least he's honest. He says, yes, there would be bias to us. Bias in favour of us. You have to admire Steve Baker's bluntness here. We want our people to continue to pour poison into the minds of the public and convince the public that we're the good guys and the left, liberals, the EU are the bad guys. And who's best to do it than the guy who convinced the poor and the working class he convinced them. He's doing well for himself. He's a multimillionaire, but he convinced the poor and the working class to vote against their own interests. And if he's able to do it in the Daily Mail, then we want him in charge of Ofcom.
Functions and ensure there's some impartiality. I can assure you that.
How does he say that with a straight face? Impartiality. He's basically said we want a conservative in charge because he's going to push conservative ideals. And then in the next breath he says impartiality.
From my point of view, time and again during interviews, I've felt that there was a consensus thought on the side of the broadcaster, which was not on the side of moderate mainstream conservatism. So,
modern mainstream conservatism. Just think about that for a moment. Modern mainstream conservatism. What is modern mainstream conservatism? Well, I want to show you some examples of modern. Let's start with the most recent ones. This is modern mainstream conservatism. Number one, provided school meals with offensively meager scraps. This, of course, is the images that Marcus Rashford, the footballer, promoted on or spread around social media of what the Conservatives think is a reasonable meal for a family. Refused to provide free meals over half term again. This is modern conservatism. Admitted that they didn't read all the small print on their own Brexit deal. So, of course, when Boris Johnson was promoting the Brexit deal, they didn't actually read it. That's modern conservatism. Dismissed concerns about the fishing industry's collapse by claiming that fish are happier now that they're British. Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, in that infamous speech in Parliament where he said, you know, the fishing industry is suffering. The fishermen are watching their fish rot in trucks at the ports, but the fish are happier because they're British fish. The complete contempt, the absolute contempt for the public and for industry itself. Unless it's industries that are donating to the Conservative Party, of course. Suggested homeless people should save up for a housing deposit. So I did a story actually on that where Sean Bailey, who's running for Mayor of London, a Conservative, of course, a caring Conservative, a modern Conservative, said that, homeless people just save up £5,000. What's the problem? Maybe they can ask their daddy to buy them a home otherwise. Caused a lot of confusion about coffee. Downing Street is reportedly considering "Don't let a coffee cost a life" as the new shock COVID-19 lockdown slogan. So about convincing people don't go out and buy a coffee because even though they had told people to eat out to help out, and of course this is the worst. This is number one here on this other list. The worst ever cabinet minister. Chris Grayling. Tory minister claimed parents were using meal vouchers to buy booze and, of course, other things. Wonderful people. When everyone thought they were getting £500 vouchers, but instead got money off Pizza Express, to help the poor. Let's help the poor in this way by, no, we're not going to actually give you cash because that would be, treating you with dignity. We'll give you vouchers instead. When the government tried to take away free NHS parking and immediately backtracked, so I covered that as well on the channel, where the government were, the NHS staff that they were clapping for, they turned around and said, "Yeah, we're going to make sure that you pay for the parking in your workplace." I had a bit of a rant on that. Opting out of another EU coronavirus scheme. So of course there was the procurement scheme that the EU provided to Boris Johnson's government. You can join this scheme to help save lives, and Boris Johnson's government said no, we don't want to be part of that. And then of course Boris Johnson insulting care home workers, blaming them for the spread of the pandemic. But it's important that we have someone at the head of Ofcom making sure that conservative ideals are pushed.
So I look forward to them perhaps being appointed and being a bit more conservative and pragmatic in what is reported.
There we have it. Steve Baker, hard right, anti-European, Brexiteer, pushing the idea that the person who's in charge, the watchdog, is a conservative. The watchdog is not impartial. The watchdog is someone who's going to welcome him and his ideology. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?